going to be opening up about and telling everyone. Sorry, I swear I'm not trying to like make this dramatic or something. Like I said, I really wish I were not feeling like I had to do this. Just give me some time. I'm gonna be doing a lot of, I guess you could say, like fourth wall breaking in a way, talking about things that I thought would always be personal and just, you know, I would just carry them myself. Today, I'm finally gonna be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, sexual assault, and threats of blackmail that Mizkif has done towards me, and some of these issues which are still ongoing. For the entirety of this year, I have attempted to separate myself from him and not talk about him at all, and not talk about this issue and just not make it a public thing. I have never always tried my best to keep this to myself, but like I said, I feel like it's gone to the point, which I'll explain later, that I feel like it just has to be done. And I have always believed in condemning people or starting drama online. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking, why am I doing this and why now? And I would like to explain that before I get started so that people understand what prompted me to do this today and that it's not just on a whim or something like that. So, like I said, I took a lot of notes, so forgive me if I just end up reading off my notes. The first and probably most severe reason is that one of the rules that I set for myself a long time ago about withholding this information was that if I ever felt like somebody else was in danger or being hurt, I would then make myself speak about it. And 2 weeks ago, actually 3 weeks ago now, I was informed by 3 separate people, one of whom was present for said incident, that he had done something similar to something that he had done to me, and someone in LA at the end of September. And this person is not a streamer or content creator, but obviously that does not matter. And because of this, I cannot in good conscience sit here knowing that I know critical information about someone that almost no one else does and not say anything. I think that most issues and dramas should stay private and off the internet, and I still hold that belief to this day, and I will hold that belief going forward. However, there are certain things that cross the line, and I say that the line has been crossed too many times to be counted. There's a point where I believe that people deserve to know. I think that at a certain point, if you know a lot of things about someone and you don't say anything to look out for others, it's wrong to keep it to yourself. I don't want what happened to me or what has happened to other people because of him to happen to other people. And I don't believe he will ever stop behaving the way he does. But regardless, yeah, like I said, one of the main reasons I decided to do this stream is to come out about all of this because I can't hold on to it any longer because it feels wrong to do so. And an honorable mention reason for why I'm doing this is that for a while, he has been indirectly threatening me through my friends and people that I work with. They've informed me that he said that if I ever talked about anything he did, he would try to create a smear campaign against me in retaliation. I was told that he even approached other streamers who were close with us back when we lived together, asking them if they would join with him, and they all refused. At TwitchCon, he approached one of my employees, threatening them and saying if I ever talked about him, he would destroy me. Multiple people have told me that his plan was to claim that I kill animals and that I killed my own rabbits, since I had several of my rabbits pass away over the course of 3 years while I lived with him. I'm sure he's probably listening now, and it's probably going to come as quite a shock to him that this information made its way back to me and that I've known for months. But if you try to threaten me to stay quiet, especially using my poor dead animals, I'm not going to stay quiet, okay? So now that I've explained all the reasons why this took so long and why I made the decision to do this stream, I have a few more things I would like to get out of the way before I start talking about all of this. The way that I'm going to do this today is I'm going to run through everything from the beginning to the end to try to get across the story as accurately and fully as I can. And hold on. I'm also going to be showing a few screenshots validating what I'm saying. I have more things, but this is what I felt comfortable using today, and I will be running through those later. Another thing that I'd like to mention before I start is that during my statement, I'm going to be mentioning directly the names of about half a dozen other creators who were present for certain things. And I want to say that none of these people did anything wrong. I'm just saying that they were there, and I've asked all of them permission. They all said that it was fine to include their names, but I know this won't stop everyone, but I ask people, for the streamers that I mentioned, please don't go bothering them or asking them for more information. If there's something else that they want to say, they'll say it themselves, so there's no point to go pester them and bother them about it. There are also streamers who gave me permission to share things that they relayed to me privately, but asked me to redact their names, which I, of course, did. And the last thing that I want to make clear is that not every person that I interact with or that I'm friends with knew the extent of all of these things. And in fact, most of them didn't. And some of them didn't even know anything at all. I tried to keep things private with my close friends, but if anyone during the past year ever approached me asking questions, I didn't lie and I told them the truth. But yeah, I don't want there to be some kind of witch hunt like, you knew and this, no. A lot of people, didn't know everything or didn't know anything. Okay, I think that's all that I have to get out of the way to start. So this is public information. I initially moved in, sorry, I'm still sick, like I said. This is all public, obviously this part. I moved in with him, I believe it was the end of 21, because he offered. I was living alone at the time, and I was having stalker issues in Kansas, and I mean, you guys know, like, all the stuff that happened there. I ended up joining the org and everything. We did a lot of streams together. And, I mean, a lot of people already know this, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. We started dating. We were in a relationship starting January 2022 after I joined O2K. I'm not planning to go into too much detail about the start of the relationship because it honestly doesn't really matter at this point. It's irrelevant now. The only things that really matter that you guys need to know for the story are that it was, one, an extremely private relationship. It was even hidden from friends and people in the org, but I mean, obviously people all eventually figured it out. They're not fucking stupid. And second, it was an extremely codependent relationship, which is not the issue, but that's just, making that clear for details. He initially portrayed himself to me as someone who was very nice to girls and wanted to help me feel safe from stalkers and wanted me to succeed as a teammate. And we grew very close over time, and I was very dependent on him for feelings of safety, social life, like my stream, my job, everything. So yeah, besides it being a very codependent relationship, the start of it was fine. I saw a lot of people mentioning this. They thought this was what I was going to talk about. It's not a secret. I think everyone who paid attention knew that he was very controlling over what I wore, to a degree, who I was friends with, and even when I would stream. So it was definitely slow over time that bad things started happening. At the start, it would be things like, for example, he would throw bottles, like plastic bottles with liquid in it, not like glass bottles, at me, despite me telling him, like, I didn't like it and it scared me and I bruised very easily. He would throw his phone at me. I would tell him, it scared me, I don't like it. And one time it even hit me in the eye, which caused me to get a black eye, but he always, was like, it's an accident. And I was like, oh yeah, it's an accident. Like, of course I'm not gonna think that, I just, at the time, I just kind of was, I just brushed it off. And looking back now, I feel like that was kind of the start of him testing my boundaries, if that makes sense. So that was already kind of starting to show signs within the first 6 months of me and him being close. And then, again, a very public situation. The end of 2022, cover-up allegations happened. I mean, yeah, like I said, all that's public. You can find all that, see like what I said during that, everything. After that happened, his behavior started getting a lot worse, which, I mean, I suppose it makes sense. He was very stressed, a lot of stuff was happening, but the bad behavior was ramping up, and I feel like it's so apparent. If you go back and watch anything from that time, I tried so hard to help him and be there for him because I really believed in him and I wanted him to, get better and get back on his feet and be the person that, I always believed that he was. But that unfortunately did not really happen. For a long time, I think about 1.5 years from when that all happened, it was kind of like slow things getting worse, but I mean, honestly, I'm not even gonna bother going into the details of all of that because there's just too much to cover, and it's honestly kind of not really relevant to the rest of what I'm saying because the rest of what I want to say is a lot worse. There was a point where things really took a turn for the worst. Like, it felt like you know, like a very delicate branch just kind of snapped. So, and again, a lot of people are like vaguely aware of this, but I'll explain it for people who aren't, you know, chronically tapped into all that stuff. So for a long time after the like cover-up allegations happened and he was like starting to kind of struggle on his stream, he never wanted to stream at the same time as me. Like, it really avoided it. And to me at the time, it made sense because, you know, I was like, well, of course, like, you know, we share a lot of community members. If we're live at separate times, we're both going to perform better. You know, it makes sense. But yeah, we were never really live doing the same thing at the same time for a long time, with the exception of like things like events or sponsors or like, you know, just special things for a very long time. And a lot of you guys probably noticed that I would only usually stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. That was because of him. And now I stream whenever I want. But the first time that we ever streamed at the same time was for the 2024 Rust Kingdoms event on Twitch. We were sharing drops, so it was the first time in a very long time that we were both going to be live at the same time doing the same thing, basically. I know you're probably like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? But it'll make sense in a bit. So I'm live, he's live, we're both streaming, and like I said, you can go find all of this. This is public, there are clips of this. We're both streaming the Rust event, and I thought it was going really well. I thought everyone was having fun. I was like, this is great, everyone's, you know, doing the same thing at the same time, we're all hanging out, you know, we're gonna have fun. Like, I was really excited. And then I start seeing in my chat, people start saying, unofficial Miz raid, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then I check my Discord messages, and he's messaging me. He's saying, like, Emmy, you know, I'm gonna kill myself, I waited, or I'm gonna KMS, I waited so long for this, etc. And basically, he was upset because I had higher viewership than him. That's literally it. I had higher viewership than him. And like I said, this is during an event, so there were drops. Like, everyone knows when there's drops, like, it's not even fucking real, but yeah, he starts messaging me, he's really upset. I tried to tell him, I was like, bro, you should come back and play. Everyone's having fun. Everyone's like wondering where you are. But yeah, he ended his stream. And then I'm still live, you know, trying to act like nothing's wrong. And in that house, I had a glass door so I could like see this was happening. He was walking behind me, making sure that I knew he was there. And by the way, there were many ways out of that house if he wanted to leave the house that were closer to his stream room. He intentionally chose the door that was right by my room. I feel like that's pretty apparent, at least to me. He starts walking behind my stream and slamming the door so loud that my noise gate can pick it up. So even people on my stream are able to hear this is happening. And he slams it so hard and so many times that the front door literally broke. The lock did not work anymore. It didn't work for months, and it would just make this horrible sound that I would have to hear like every fucking day. But anyway, so I hear him back there doing this, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I tell my stream, I'm like, hey guys, I'll be right back. I get up and I go talk to him, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, Emmy, like, I hate all of you guys. Like, all you guys do is just take from me. Like, I'm just done. And I was like, is this like really happening because of rush drops? And he was like, I don't know what else to do. He was like going off on me, like basically saying that he hated me. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do now. And he was like, go finish your stream so that people don't know anything's wrong. And I stop in the bathroom outside my stream room, and I'm like, you know, checking my makeup, trying to make sure people can't tell that I was like crying. And I'm only in there for like 30 seconds, and he comes and like looms in the doorway. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just checking my makeup. So I go back and I stream for a couple hours, finish the stream, do my best to just like, you know, carry on the show basically. And yeah, after that, like I said, was when things started to get really fucking bad. It was like something just snapped. For the rest of the week, he streamed the Rust event. He got all the drop viewers. I'm sure he was very happy. I mean, good for him. And during that time, I obviously was like thinking and processing a lot of what happened. But I mean, it was a lot because this person was at the time like kind of it was like my partner and my best friend and like the only person that like I really talked to ever, or like at least off stream. So I mean, it was a lot. But the very next stream, I went live about a week after that, and I announced that I was planning to move. because I knew that I would have to move. So I was like, okay, I have to go live and say this so that, you know, kind of force myself to commit to it, right? Does that make sense? Obviously, didn't move out right away, but after like all of that Rust stuff happened was when the other domestic abuse stuff really started. He would destroy furniture in front of me. He would throw things in front of me and near me. Destroy walls. Again, you can go see this in some of his VODs in his bedroom. The holes in the wall. There would be times where he was upset at me, and I would go to my stream room and literally lock myself in to get away from him, and he would be banging on the door and screaming at me. At the time, he also would more often do things like going, like if we were driving in the car together, he would be going like 150 miles an hour, and like one time he even said like, well, now we're both gonna die, like threatening to kill both of us. And this wasn't like even necessarily because of me or like because of something I did a lot of the time. Like one of the times that it happened, it was because we were just getting food and he was on his phone and he saw that Mr. Beast had put out a video, and Mr. Beast had invited another streamer, and he was like, Mr. Beast invited this guy to his video, not me. And I was like, well, you know, like, yeah, I guess so. Which led to him going 150 miles per hour in the car and talking about killing himself while doing it. At home, other things would happen, like I'd be trying to sleep and he would scream at me and say that it was all my fault that he felt insecure. There was a time that I walked into a room that he was in, and as soon as he saw me there, he threw his phone at the dresser and started yelling because I had posted a YouTube video within the same couple of days as him, and mine was doing better. So basically, I felt like I was kind of stuck in a loop where I felt like I had to constantly perform and like prove my value, not be thrown away. But at the same time, if I ever performed too well, I was gonna be punished for it. And it just felt like a very rough situation to be stuck in because, I mean, streaming is my hobby and my job. Like, it's a huge part of my life, even before, you know, I met him and became like a larger creator. And I remember thinking all the time how it felt like he hated me, but he still wanted me around for his channel and like his thumbnails and everything. And this is still before I moved out. There was a time where it was the tension in the house was so unbearable that I would sneak out and I would sneak into Esfan's house using my code. And Esfan didn't know why I was doing this. He saw me a couple times. I'd be like, I'm just gonna go take a nap in your guest room. He'd be like, yeah, that's fine. I would sneak into Esfan's house just to have some time of like peace and quiet. But eventually, he figured out where I was going and he would go over to Esfan's house to keep telling me off. And there was a time that he did it, and I was laying in the guest room bed. One of the roommates in that house had come to see like why I was crying, and they were standing in the corner. And he came in and he was very physically aggressive. He was like, Emmy, like, what are you doing? Like, angry. And then as soon as he turned and saw this other person standing there, he instantly like deflated and changed his tone. He was like, oh, Emmy, I was wondering where you were. Like, are you coming home? And that roommate like later asked me about it. And they were like, what the fuck was that? Like, are you okay? And I was just like, it's nothing, because I felt like a lot of the reason that I didn't tell the people around me was because I felt like no one would understand, or even if they understood, it would just be a burden to them, because all of our streams and social circles and communities are so intertwined. I was like, maybe it's just better for me to deal with this and like hope things get better, basically. I honestly don't even remember what the final straw was that I finally was like, okay, it's time to go. Like, I prepared the house that I lived in before this one, like, pretty much immediately after the, like, breaking the front door thing happened, but I was still, like, scared and unsure. So I don't remember what the final straw was, but for the day I took Cheddar to the house, because he just randomly started, like, screaming at Cheddar. He was like, get that fucking cat out of my house. So I just grabbed Cheddar and put him in my car and grabbed his litter box and took him there, and I just left him there and never took him back to that house. And then I think like within several days after that was when I finally moved out. It was on very short notice. Like I said, I don't even remember what the final straw was because so many things happened, but There was a time when I just knew, called some movers, I said, hey, can you come tomorrow? And they were like, yeah, and then I literally moved the next day. Moving out into the last house that I lived in was a huge step mentally because, like I said, a big part of why I moved into the first house in Texas in the first place was because I felt like it was the safest option for me because, you know, I am a girl where it's like kind of scary for me to be living alone. So it was very hard, and at the time, even though like all these other things had already happened, I was very hopeful that me and him could be cordial and like eventually like things would be fine, at least publicly, like for stream reasons, that, you know, everyone could just keep streaming like nothing had happened. And, you know, at the time I thought that would be the best thing to do, and I felt like if I, you know, separated myself from him without explaining anything, people that watched us wouldn't understand and would attack me. I was, yeah, I mean, it ended up happening anyway, so. But yeah, after I moved out, we, like I said, still kept in contact. I had hope that somehow things would get better. He would always beg for me to come back, and he would promise therapy and change and like even talk to other people and like kind of present like I want to change, I want to be better for Emmy or whatever, you know. There was a short period in October where we had broken up because, I mean, honestly it doesn't matter now. And when that happened, I honestly felt relieved because I was like, okay, finally it's like on his terms, so that means he'll be satisfied and he'll be able to say it was his choice and he'll leave me alone, because whenever I would try to push for it, it just felt like I couldn't like really sever it, if that makes sense. But I mean, obviously, hence me doing this stream, that was not the end of it. A week after this breakup, he asked to come over to my house and talk for closure. He came to my house and I was crying like crazy because the emotions were just very high because I was dealing with a lot of major shifts in my life as a result of me attempting to start to try to distance myself from him. So yeah, we were just talking and I was crying a lot. He started to try to comfort me by hugging me while I was sitting on the couch and holding me really close. He tried to climb on top of me and aggressively shoved his hand down my pants, and I screamed. And when I screamed, he jumped off me like a cat, and instead of apologizing or checking if I was okay, he said, I feel weird now. I feel like I did something wrong. I have to go. And he immediately left my house while I was still crying without checking if I was okay or anything. And at the time, I was still making excuses for him, and I was still afraid of causing trouble for other streamers around us, or like, you know, making things weird for viewers. I know that probably sounds crazy, but like I just felt this pressure, like I had to try to keep things together, if that makes sense. Yeah, I felt like I'd caused trouble for so many other people if I ever said anything bad about him, or if I caused rifts in our friend group or streamer group. I tried to stay on good terms with him and hold everything in, and also I still cared about him a lot, and I still at that point had hope that things would get better and that, you know, he would improve. And he'd also always hammer into me how he never physically abused me because he never hit me. And he would coach me and tell me to tell people or other streamers who were asking about it because they were concerned. He would say, tell them that I never hit you. Make sure that they know that I never hit you. Around the same time, this was during OnlyFans 2, so I guess like December-ish. He would often message me in the middle of my streams and berate me for things like playing the same class as him, and because he thought it would make people think that I was better than him. And again, like I said earlier, I felt like I was stuck in a constant loop where I had to perform well to not be thrown away, but if I performed too well, I was gonna be punished. And I actually wanted to show some of those messages because obviously a lot of these things, I'm not gonna fully read these out because I honestly just don't want to read them out, but I feel like I want to show them to like kind of show what I'm saying. And I am planning to probably post the VOD of this somewhere, so if, you know, you want to read this later, that's fine, I guess. And again, this was all happening while I was live. You can literally go find the stream and see me trying to deal with this while I'm live in the middle of a dungeon, trying to just play the fucking game. Oh, fuck, I think Tank Emmy, do it. Let me handle all the hate, the criticism, the you're worse than Emmys. The Emmy is so much better. The people saying you're better in every chat. The comparison says nobody will ever be on my side. Let me deal with it. You have fun. I asked you not to become a tank. You didn't listen. And now it's the classic, what was I supposed to do? I'm not dealing with this. And like I said, you can go find the stream. But for context, I was playing Warrior in World of Warcraft in like a level 24 dungeon. It was like Silverpine. Like, it was just like, it wasn't even like, it was like dog shit gameplay, I'm gonna be honest. Like, so, yeah, you can read that later, I suppose. If, yeah, like I said before, hold on. I was constantly trying so hard to compromise with him because I wanted to be cool and I wanted us to be able to coexist in the same streaming sphere, but I felt like I could never win, and he hated my whole existence. Like, ever since that one stream where I had like a little bit more viewers than him. And he would say that it was my fault that his stream was dying because most of his viewers liked me, and whenever he hit on another girl, they would be confused or not take it seriously because they knew that me and him were together privately. And he said if he would be able to hit on other girls and convince them that it was real, he would get his career back. That was like, started within the last couple of weeks that we spoke to each other. He started saying terrible things to me about other streamers in Austin, in particular one specific streamer who I know there's a lot of people that know he has beef with certain streamers. It was not one of those streamers. It was someone who to this day has been nothing but nice to him. He would say horrible things about this person, like about them in their stream, and it was very hard to listen to. And just in general, he would say horrible things about other streamers in Austin, like, I quote, "I hate everyone here. You are all useless to me. You're worthless to me because it does nothing for my stream anymore to collab with any of you." And him saying that was the final straw for me. The day that he said that to me about other people was the first day that I ever, for the first time, started to ignore his calls and messages. And because of that, he even threatened to come to my house if I didn't answer. But I did end up calling him back, and I spoke to him, and I basically told him that I felt like I could finally see things for what they were. He started panicking, and he was super apologetic, and he was saying he didn't want to lose me, which wasn't the first time that he like did something like that and was like, you know, basically begging me not to leave. But that was definitely the most extreme time. And again, like I said, I always had the hope that things would be cordial or that, you know, we could be fine with each other. So I agreed, and we agreed we were going to talk about all of that. We talked about it about a week later, and instead of apologizing for anything, he basically told me that he realized he needed to go to Japan and LA, get his viewership back up, and he was basically too young to focus on friendships and relationships. And it was, I mean, despite everything, like I said, I still cared about him. So it was still hard. And I mean, it was like a mix of feelings, you know, like I was devastated, but I was also so relieved. But because of the past incidents during like other fights and times I would try to separate myself from him, past incidents during those times of him manipulating me into staying close with him and giving him more chances, sexually assaulting me, the abuse, and just him generally not being a very nice person. After that, I decided that the only solution and way for me to move forward, I made the hard decision, but I know now for sure the right one, was to finally completely cut contact with him. I knew it'd be very hard because our careers and our communities were so intertwined, but I knew that I had to do it and that there was no other choice. So I have not spoken to him since January of this year. It's been 10 months, but if you think that's the end, it is unfortunately not. I haven't spoken to him since January of this year. It only took a couple of weeks, but soon the messages started. He has attempted to contact me over 40 times individually this year in individual texts, Discord messages, Instagram DMs, and phone calls, and I'm just gonna show those. And at first it started simple, be confusing messages, or like him expressing he was worried about things. Like, at first it wasn't anything weird. This is not someone who loves or cares about you. And keep in mind, this is only things that he sent to me. I can't document all the things that people told me that he was saying. And just kind of a funny side note, I guess. I would like to highlight this message because it doesn't really matter, but I ran it through a ChatGPT checker and all the highlights. Like I said, doesn't really matter. I just thought it was interesting. Yeah. Like I said at first, the messages were just simple things, like him saying he was worried about things or saying no one was talking to him, which I don't think was even true at the time. I think he was just saying that to try to guilt me into responding to him. I'm not sure about that, of course. This also extended to in-person interactions because initially I made the mistake of thinking that I only had to cut him off through private communication and, you know, we would be fine going to the same events and parties and such. I also had to start, hold on, I'm still fucking sick. I made the mistake of thinking that I only had to cut him off through personal private communication, but I also had to start avoiding going to the same parties or places I was worried he'd be in person because this was after he came back from his first trip to Japan. There was a party that I attended several months after I first went no contact with him. I was aware that he would be there, and I thought it'd be fine. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal. I thought I'll just let him have his space, I'll have my space, you know, it's not a big deal. We're adults, right? During this party, I felt like he was following me around and monitoring me, but I thought that I was just being paranoid. I was like, it's probably just in your head. I was hanging out with Nick and Kachi and a couple other friends, and at some point Nick was like, it's too fucking loud down here, let's go upstairs. No one's upstairs. Let's just go, you know, chill in a room and like talk where it's not so loud. And I was like, okay. So they as a group went upstairs first without me, but it took me a bit longer to get up there because someone like stopped me and was talking to me. And I did feel like, I mean, he was like standing pretty close to that person. I felt like he was watching me, but again, I thought I was just being paranoid. But I went upstairs, I was hanging out with Nick and Kachi and, you know, our other friends. And then about 30 minutes later, the room that we're in, the door opens. It's Miz. He opens the door, makes eye contact with me, goes, ooh, and then closes the door and leaves. And I was like, what the fuck? But again, I was still trying my best to, you know, give the benefit of the doubt. Like, you know, maybe it's just like an awkward situation or something. But a couple months later, the person that he was hanging out with that night reached out to me privately and was apologizing. And I was like, why? And they're like, I just felt like I had to apologize to you because I felt so bad and so embarrassed of what was going on. Like, yes, he wanted to see what you were doing. He was saying, like, I want to go see what's upstairs, and he was checking every room. And then after he opened the room that you were in with Nick, he closed the door and started laughing, and then he just wanted to talk about, you know, how you guys broke up for the next, like, however many hours of the night. So I was like, okay, that's good to know, I guess. The next story that I want to tell involves what happened to me, Valkyrie, and Cinna earlier this year when we were attacked at the Santa Monica Pier, because that was obviously, hold on, let me close all these fucking texts. I don't want to look at them. They're still on my desktop. Which was not an issue. Like, we had no issue with that. Like, obviously it's big news. People are going to talk about it. It should be talked about. We had, like, no issues with anyone talking about it and covering it, and that included him. I was fine with that. He joined in on that whole thing of people going live to talk about it. And again, I'd like to remind people at this point, we were already a couple months into me being no contact with him, making it clear I didn't want anything to do with him. And so during this stream, he was covering what happened to me, Ray, and Cinna. He decided that he was going to tell more of my personal stalker stories that I've never personally talked about or shared publicly myself. And one of these stories was one that, like, no one knew at all, and, like, it just felt so shitty because at the time that those things happened, like, you know, all the people that lived in that area together, we all came together and we all kind of decided, and this was heavily pushed by him, we should never talk about this because, you know, people are gonna be weird. It puts Emmy in more danger, and, you know, it gives people ideas, so we're never gonna talk about it. But, you know, of course, as soon as there's some big drama that he's not involved in, and he finds a way to, you know, bring up, oh, I was there for something that happened to Emmy, he does it. He was on a stream talking about these personal stories of mine, and I caught wind of it. And by the way, It was also so frustrating not say anything at this time because the way he told those stories, he kind of framed himself as like the hero. He was like, oh, I held the stalker at gunpoint. No. The only person who ever came into contact face to face with that stalker before the police came was Bonnie. Bonnie is the person who found that guy outside, went inside, told everyone, called the police. The police came. All Miz did was he stood far away from the front door, behind glass and metal, with a gun. Yeah, I mean, I understand, still very scary, but why are you acting like if anyone deserves credit for that, it's Bonnie. Like, it's literally stolen valor. I'm so glad I finally get to say that because she is the one who, like, kept everyone in those two houses safe, not him. Anyway, back to the original thing, the Ray and Cinna stuff. I was obviously panicking, like, I just had this horrible thing happen to me the night before. It was, like, huge, like, public, millions of people seeing it, and then my crazy ex-boyfriend is going live talking about more of my personal stuff, and, I'm, like, crying, and, Cinna and Ray are like, what's wrong, and I tell them, and I'm, like, panicking. I'm like, I need to call so-and-so, I need to call so-and-so, I need to call so-and-so, like, these different people that I was like, they can contact him because I did not want to contact him. So, Ray, Cinna, some of me and Miz's mutual business partners, and Asmongold were all, messaging him to stop. And by the way, Asmongold told me that he tried to call Miz while he was talking, and it rang 3 times and then hung up, which means that he saw it and he just wanted to be able to keep talking because, yeah, anyway, just a little note. I don't know exactly what, like, the other people said to him, but Ray and Cinna told me that they were messaging him being like, bro, like, stop, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And he was messaging them, who were also equally as traumatized as me, of course. They had gone through the same thing. Oh, what am I doing wrong? I'm letting people know what, girls go through. Was that your job? Well, anyway, yeah, that all happened a couple of months into me being no contact with him. And yeah, he was arguing with Ray and Cinna while they're trying to be like, bro, like, stop, like, you're making it worse. He finished talking about my stuff and then reacted to Cinna and Ray's whole stream where they were crying, addressing their communities, made sure to react to that, and then immediately went offline. So yeah, that was a terrible weekend. I got threatened to be stabbed, and then the next day, my weird ex was going live trying to self-insert so that he could make sure to farm his own clips. After that incident, his attempts to talk to me only ramped up, which I showed those texts. We went back to Japan, and during that trip, he was texting, calling me, trying to call me quite a lot, begging me to take him back. And at the same time, I heard that he was reaching out to quite a few other streamers who know both of us. And he was crying to them about how he wanted to get back together and how he thought someday we would reconnect and eventually get married. I don't think he even meant that, but I hope not. But I assume he did that with the hope that they would relay the messages back to me since I wasn't talking to him. And, I mean, some of them did. I also had a couple other streamers report to me that he would obsessively watch my stream and not in a, like, oh, I wonder what Emmy's doing right now way, or, like, having my stream open. Like, he would be obsessively and attentively hate watching my stream, like, watching my stream and just saying horrible things almost every time that I've been live this year. And they tell me that he would want to discuss how he believed I still wanted him, interesting, considering I never replied. And he would ask other guys if they thought I had slept with anyone this year. They'd be like, I don't fucking know, man. And then they told me he would say stuff like, no, there's no way she's done that. She's not like that. And she's probably waiting for me. Just really fucking gross stuff like that. And a couple of streamers in LA also told me that he was telling people that me and him still talk all the time, but we simply weren't together anymore because I was too mature and I was not ready. I was too immature. But yeah, you couldn't see from the messages I showed. I'm not sure if people can go back and read them. He was begging me to take him back for the majority of this year, which was 7 or 8 months total. And like I said, some of those messages were even, I believe, ChatGPT. Not that it really matters, it's just interesting, right? As of today, it's been about 2 months since he has attempted to contact me directly. I think because about 2 months ago was when he started kind of getting scared that I might have been telling people things, which again, I wasn't going on my way to do it, but if anyone ever asked me, I wasn't gonna lie to them. I mentioned this at the beginning before I started fully telling the story. I heard from my friends, other streamers, and my employees that he had cooked up a plot that if I ever tried to talk about him, about the abuse or anything else, he would try to go live and say that I killed my rabbits. And I was told that he approached several streamers who were around us a lot when we lived together and asked if they would basically back him up, and they refused. Obviously, they're not insane. And even something happened this weekend at TwitchCon. One of my employees told me he went up to them and he threatened them, saying, if Emmy ever tries to talk about me, I will destroy her. Whatever that means. And within the same night, he also texted one of my best friends, and he would have known that I would have been with this girl. He texted her saying, hey, worried about her, hope she's okay. Right after he just said to my employee and other people that he was gonna try to destroy my life. Yeah, all in the same night. And, yeah, that was Saturday, so that pretty much leads us to today. I feel like it's clear I've spent the last year of my life cutting him off.